Yeah, there we go. Go live and let me wait. Yeah, I can see myself. Yeah, there we are. Okay, hey, welcome everyone. I hope you're doing well. This is show number 26, I think. And as you can see, show straight from my pool. Yeah, that was a promise that I did. I said, as soon I get my pool filled, and I did that just after the latest show. Well, I will do it from my pool. Okay, so I got here a crazy setup, and yeah, I will take a picture of behind the scenes. Maybe you saw it on Twitter, but I will take a picture and you will see it because I got all my stuff here. That should be okay. And the cats are also thinking, wow, what is he doing? Okay, so in the chat, I see Matt Kimberly. Hello, and say hello in the chat. Don't be shy. I will bring on stage my guest in a few seconds. We will have a lot of fun. And I'm checking the delay. Yeah, 15 seconds delay on YouTube like usual. Okay. Oh, I got mosquitoes here. Let's try to catch this one. Okay. I will be bitten live just like the last time. Okay. So everyone, you're so shy on the chat. Please say hi. Don't be shy. Yeah, hi Matt. I know that you're there, Matt Kimberly. You know what? Let me bring the guest on stage, and we will start from there. So I need to find the right window for that. Hey, Alfonso. Hey, there you are. Okay, hey, and there we go. Hey, Matt.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I'm excellent. How are you?
I'm fine. Look, I'm working now.
Right? You're not very hot either, right? You got like a natural cooling system going right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm lucky today. It's not the warmest day, so but yeah. And it's 6 p.m. for me, so the sun is starting slowly to get less powerful. Let's say so. But yeah. And
Nice.
yeah, thank you so much for being on the show. And you know what? I always start like this. Matt, who are you? Introduce yourself. Take the time that you want for people who don't know who you are. The stage is yours.
Okay. So I'm Matt Raible. I'm a hick from the sticks. I grew up in the backwoods of Montana without electricity or running water for 16 years. I had to walk 2 miles to the bus stop every day, and it felt like it was uphill both ways. So it's unique that I'm in the computer industry after having a background like that. But my dad was very interested in computers, and we had like Byte magazine coming in the 80s, and he went to school and drove 80,000 miles one year to get his master's in computer science to Missoula, Montana. So there was a lot of influence there from my father. And now I work at a company called Okta. My dad calls it Okra, so it's okay if you get it messed up or whatnot. But I'm a developer advocate there. But I still like to say I'm mostly a developer. And I used to have a bad hobby of speaking at conferences around the world. And at one point in my career, I thought it's nice being an independent consultant, but every time I go and speak at a conference like DevOps Belgium or something like that, I have to take a week off, and that's opportunity lost from a pay perspective. So I was like, maybe I can turn this into something where I get paid to do that. And so I did.
Yeah.
I joined Stormpath, Octobot Stormpath, and here I am.
Awesome. Yeah. And well, you were talking about your hobby, traveling. But since things are changing now. Since a few days, it's getting better. But yeah,
Right.
last year the world changed a little bit, and so like you, I was used to travel like crazy, and I was in lockdown, and yeah, I still had to do my job. So how did you handle this situation?
Right. So it was actually very interesting because the notion of not traveling, I was planning on doing anyway. My daughter was a senior in high school this past year. So in July of last year, I'd already made an agreement with Okta that I would not travel for the whole year. And I expected to have, more time to write blog posts, maybe a couple of books. I did start a book, but, fast forward a year, I'm still not done with it. And I basically was planning on it. So it just happened a few months early. And the difference was I didn't expect to speak so much, right? And all the conferences became virtual, and there became a demand for virtual speakers. And so, that changed a bit. But I've certainly missed like traveling from a, vacation standpoint or going to Europe and various places, in Paris and stuff like that, just because I love the culture so much.
Cool. And yeah, since you're a developer advocate, and I remember we use one code that I don't remember where. At one point, you were making a video, I think, and you had this sentence. You said, "In fact, I'm a hello world engineer," something like that, and that was really funny.
I'm an example programmer.
Example programming. That's it. And I use that often when I explain my role, one part of my role. But yeah, is that still how you explain your role? Well, example programming, but what is for you a developer advocate?
Yeah, so I definitely consider myself an example programmer because I only test in Chrome, right? And I only test on a Mac, those kind of things. So it's a very unique world where we get to make sure things work on our machine and then ship it. And my production is when the blog post or the video is published or when that conference talk is delivered. So it's very different from the normal software engineer. But I think the unique perspective is we also get to talk to customers and see what they're doing, right? And see how they're using our products and stuff. So a developer advocate to me is really first and foremost a developer, right? They actually know how to code, and then they can talk to people and explain to other people how to code. Now, I know there's, in our industry, there's changing roles of developer advocates. So I don't think, you absolutely have to know how to code. I see people coming, straight out of college or maybe from a marketing background. It just kind of depends on the company and how they do developer advocacy, and for the individual, how they want to do it, right? So It can be different for everyone, I think.
Okay, yeah. So do you, by the way, make a difference between developer advocate and developer evangelist? Is that the same for you, or
No. So when I started at Stormpath, I was a developer evangelist. That's what they called us, right? And one of the first conferences I went to with that role was DevOps US. It was the first and only DevOps US they had. And as part of that, they had like a developer advocacy day, right? And I remember Arun Gupta like standing up and doing a talk and being like, if you call yourself evangelist, you're doing it wrong, right? Because evangelism is very much from a religious connotation where someone would evangelize the gospel or whatnot, but they wouldn't be really looking for feedback, right? It would be more of a one-way street. So I try to use advocate as much as I can. Even if we use it internally, I use it externally to basically imply that, I'm talking, but I'm also listening, right? I advocate for you. Like we have these new t-shirts. I'm not wearing one right now, but it's from Tron and it says, I fight for the users. And I think that's who we are, right? We fight for the developers. We want to make their lives easier. And oftentimes we have to talk a lot to our company to make that happen.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. And just about DevOps US, I was not there, but I think it was the conference where there were more speakers than attendees. Or something.
Right. It was fun from a social perspective, but when you're talking and there's only 15 people in the room, you were like, this is odd for a DevOps.
There were too many tracks. Yeah. So tell us a bit about Okta. What is Okta?
So I like to say they're what do you call it? A user access service provider, right? The definition or the SaaS term would be UAS, right? But that's not great. So I like to say OAuth as a service. So, if you're using identity, they call it the identity cloud, right? The marketing people, but to developers, I often explain it as OAuth and OpenID Connect as a service. So you don't really want to learn Okta so much in the beginning. You probably want to learn OAuth and OIDC, and we happen to provide those tools. And if you need more features than just OAuth or OpenID Connect provides, well, we have those too. So it's all about, adding authentication to your applications. That's what I deal with in my role, because I'm dealing with customer identity, which implies that you as a company need to embed authentication to your apps to ship to your customers. Now, it started as workforce identity, which means your employees need to sign into apps throughout the day. So traditionally, a lot of people have, purchased Okta for their employees. So their employees only have to remember one password, and then they can log into all the apps they use throughout the day.
Okay. Yeah. I know a lot also about identity, and maybe we will talk about Keycloak a bit later and community and stuff like that. But yes, it's I know that developers don't really like the security. Well, middleware developers like us, security is something that they do at the end of the project or don't do or do badly. And remember when I was advocating Keycloak, I was telling that to people, I know you don't like it, but look, you don't have to care about it anymore. We deal with that for you. And then they are really focused on your talk. And do you also have this feeling when you give a talk about, do you see that interest of developers, because you're talking about and it's not the most exciting stuff always, okay? We're not showing the greatest, most exciting frameworks. We are talking about identity and security stuff, but still, they know it's important, and and then they listen.
Right. I think the hard part in talking about security, it's like testing was back in the early 2000s, right? Like people talked about it, but no one really did it. And as a consultant, when you would join a project and there were no tests, you were like, whew, this is going to be tough to refactor. Like how do we even know if we broke anything? And security, I think the reason it's been difficult for developers to stomach, I know this because my wife was in security when I first met her, is a lot of security people sell FUD, right? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. They talk to developers as if they're going to hack their shit. Like the first time I met one of Trish's best friends at a conference in Kansas City, it was a security conference. I introduced myself and said I was a Java developer, and they said, I bet I can hack your shit. I was like, dude, we just met. Like, come on, let's, be nice. And so I think, a lot of the security profession has kind of sold security to developers like that. Like, you're dumb, we can help you, we can make things better. And so I think that's part of the problem, and that's why developers have traditionally been scared of it. I think if you've used tools like Spring Security, you've seen how easy it can be, and then you're not as intimidated. But if you use like a CG Security back in the day when it was 400 lines of XML to configure everything, you're like, I don't know if I need that in my project. So I think it's gotten better, but I still think developers don't even care about OAuth and OpenID Connect. Like they shouldn't have to, right? They should be able to add 4 or 5 lines of code to their app and they're secure, and it's good enough. And whoever they're offloading that to, whether it's Keycloak or Okta or someone else, like it should work.
And we are making things easier with Okta, Keycloak, or other great solution. Auth0. Oh, by the way, Auth0, you're in the same. It's the same company, no?
Right. We don't have to hate them anymore. I never hated them, so I've never been one of those people that's really been gung-ho about my company or anything like that and hated competitors. But marketing people and sales people will be like that, right? Where they hate the other competitor. And so for me, it was very much like I don't have to defend us against them anymore, right? They're part of the family now. They're still a separate company, right? They have a separate API and separate systems, but they're certainly it's nice to embrace them and be like, you might want to check their stuff out because they do device flow now and we haven't quite released it and things like that,
Yeah. And that's, to be honest, that's something that I really appreciate with you. You say you don't like this competition, and I can really see it because you were just sometimes in your presentation just showing Keycloak or writing a blog post where you show also Keycloak, and that's just great. We need more people like you doing that. And okay, so and what I wanted to say, we are making things easier in security with OpenID Connect and these tokens, but at the same time, things that we deploy, workloads that we deploy, are getting more and more complex as well. We are deploying maybe in one cluster, we are deploying some Spring Boot and maybe some Node.js component, and we need to propagate all those tokens. And so on one side we are making it easier, on one side we are adding complexity. Do you have any opinion on that, or about? I'm slowly going through the cloud, speaking about the cloud, but I don't. Yeah. So, is there?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is we've both been in this industry for quite a while, right? I started it around 1997, and so I saw the era of Java apps where we were deploying to these large, servers like iPlanet and then WebLogic and WebSphere and stuff like that. And if you think Kubernetes is hard, you haven't deployed to one of those suckers and tried to create a near file and make everything work together, right? So even though it seems more complex now, I don't know that it actually is. And I think, if we look back to that time, what we really wanted to do was be able to test things outside of the container, right? And so I think we're kind of back in that era where, the reason Tomcat became so popular is because it was fast and you could test outside the container without deploying to it. And so people started using it in integration tests and things like that. And I think Kubernetes is similar, where you want to be able to run your app without Kubernetes so you can test and iterate fast, right? And then you want to have maybe some nightly deployment that does integration tests on your Kubernetes cluster or a Kubernetes cluster to make sure you didn't forget something there. So I think, developers still want to be able to like run things locally, or at least the thing they're working on locally, and proxy to, some other services. But, I don't think a whole lot has changed. And I think, what we've seen with security and access tokens and ID tokens and all that is there's a lot of JavaScript developers that want to put that on the front end and want to do all the authentication on the front end, which is possible. But if you have a back end, you should still do it there, right? And then good old session cookies, like those have been around for 30 years and they still work just great, right? So there's no reason to change that too much if you don't have to.
Yeah. Okay. And since we speak about Kubernetes, is that something, I don't know if you have played with it, but inside the cluster from service to service, if you need to propagate a token and you need to verify the token in each service, you can do that in your workload. But if you have a lot of different workloads, a lot of different technologies, you have to maintain all those libraries that check your token, maybe ask to the identity server if it's valid. Have you played with service mesh where you could delegate that to the mesh? Have you any experience with that? Or
yeah, so I've done a bit with Istio, via JHipster. Like JHipster has Istio support, and what I think of a service mesh a lot of times is like AOP for the network, right?
Exactly.
AOP used to be a way, a Spring that you would add logging to all your different, cross-cutting concerns. And so I think, Istio is very similar. There's a friend of mine, Fernand, who actually, I talked to him about this recently, and he recommended a different product. He's like, Istio is kind of on the wayside, and there's something new, Cilium or something like that that's coming along that actually like reimagines the networking layer between the services. And so it doesn't require, sidecars per se. You install this in your cluster and then it can do that kind of things on the network layer. So even below like the application layer. So I think there's a lot of, companies competing in this space and trying to get their product in there. And I think it's cool, but as developers, right, the ability to run it without that cluster is still a thing. So we're going to need some way to like turn off security in our apps, right, when we go to the cluster. And if we have that feature flag, that's kind of dangerous, right? Like if we turn it off and don't turn it on in the cluster, then boom, we're wide open,
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. How do you remember the name of this other product?
Hold on, I can look it up here. I wrote a blog post and had it in there recently, so
I understood selenium, but that is something else.
No, I probably pronounced it wrong, so let me see.
No, well, I understand it probably wrong. And let me just check in the and people in the chat, if you have any question, don't be shy, just drop your questions. I will be more than happy. Oh, there are...
Oh, it's Cilium, Cilium.
Okay, where did you... Oh, you put it in the private chat?
No, I grabbed it here. I can put it in the chat if I can find it here. Nope. Can't find it. Oh, there's private chat. Cilium.
Private, and now I'm searching for my... Oh, yeah, there. Oh, yeah, Cilium. Okay, Cilium. Okay, interesting. I just bookmark it, and I will take a look. That's interesting. So you don't need a sidecar. It's just using the lower layers of the network. So level...
Right, they call it or BPF. You're familiar with that? I'm not, but let me look it up here. It's Berkeley Packet Filter.
Okay.
So it analyzes network traffic and it can create a raw interface to data link layers. So like I said, it's pretty low level, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Might be interesting you have to look if it's not too complex. If you go in the really lower levels of network.
Okay. And part of the reason I was interested in it is I was just asking, my friend Fernand about actual, Istio and stuff. And part of the reason I didn't mention Istio much or use Istio in this blog post is because I've heard a lot of people just say, like, if you're going to learn Kubernetes, just learn Kubernetes, right? Like adding Istio in there is a lot. So you're just going to fry your brain, like learn one thing at a time, right? And then spend some time learning the service mesh stuff later or whatnot.
Yeah. And I'm just quickly looking and on the logo, I just see there you have Selenium in the middle, and I just see Kafka, and that just triggers a bell. That's something that we don't really do. Well, there are stuff you can do around it, but securing Kafka topics and being able to send a message on a Kafka topic with your token, I think you can already do it, but I think that's something that is not yet. I don't know. Do you have any plans, you as an advocate, or to write about that, to do demos about that? Because we are getting more and more to event-driven architecture. Everything is an event, and we are streaming, and so. But at one point, we need security as well. So, what is your view on this?
Well, I think it's interesting. As developers, we want to be pragmatic, right? We don't want to add too much complexity. So I think there's still a lot of folks that believe if you put it behind a firewall, it can actually, you don't need security on it, which in some senses is okay. If your firewall is in your company though, there's so much social engineering that happens, right? Where an employee gets hacked and someone impersonates the employee. And if that employee is an administrator, well, behind the firewall ain't gonna cut it. But as you're deploying to the cloud, that's a whole different ball game. And then you need things like advanced server access, which I sound like a marketing person now. It's another product of ours that allows you to basically secure like SSH and stuff like that with your Okta credentials, right? So I think if you're locking down your infrastructure, using something like Okta, then maybe you can put them behind your firewall. But developers are still going to want some way of not setting up all this security just to test something or get it running. So I think, again, you need some way to develop locally with less, constraints, and then deploy to production with more.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. Well, we were speaking, you mentioned Gipster. Maybe we can speak a bit about Gipster. So let's first start about Java. So you're a Java champion. So I assume you like Java. You still do you keep up with all the Java releases, with the latest features? Java 16.
I do. That's one of the beauty of being a developer advocate, right? I can use Java 16 and no one cares.
Exactly. Yeah. And what is your preferred new feature from the whole stuff until now? Is it records or no, maybe strings for you, that you can inline, that you can have multi-line strings?
So I will admit that we aren't actually, or I'm not using many of the new features. In fact, JHipster is, where I do a lot of my Java development nowadays. And when I first started working on it, I think it was 2014 or 15, and we had support for Java 6, 7, and 8. And the code would actually be different, right? There was different constructs, there was lambdas or no lambdas, things like that. And for the most part, we haven't really forced, we default to Java 11 now, but if you happen to change, your pom.xml or your build Gradle to use Java 8, everything will still work. So we haven't started embracing var or any of the new stuff that much. I did like records, and I was pretty excited about them until I saw that they don't work with JPA, and I was like, really? That would be so cool if they did.
Oh, yeah. To be honest, that was also my first thought. I haven't tried with JPA. Oh, it doesn't work with JPA.
It doesn't work. It's not a thing.
Okay, that's too bad.
Now I could see innovation happening in the future where they are supported, but right now it's not.
Okay, yeah, because I was already thinking about Quarkus. I just annotate my record maybe with entity, and in one liner I have my entity.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. I have.
And now if you're using Kotlin, you could do that, right? Their data classes do allow that. So it's like, come on, Java, you can do better.
Exactly. So for people who don't know Gipster, do you call it still a rapid application development tool? Is that correct?
Yeah, well,
cool.
We call it a platform now. We've got some marketing people involved. Actually, it's just the people on the team. But we discovered that since it allows you to generate an app, and then generate Docker or Kubernetes configuration, even CI and CD, we try to call it a platform now. And we've also had a lot of people that want to upgrade, right? And so once you're upgrading, and we've had a lot of people say they want to push the code that's generated into libraries more instead of having it in their projects. All that kind of leans more towards framework and platform than it does application generator. But still at its very core, yes, we're an application generator, right? We generate JavaScript on the front end, Java on the back end, and it's really blown up in the last 5 years because we had this concept called blueprints that allows people to override the back end or the front end. And so, we have Quarkus, we have Micronaut, we even have Nest.js support in Node on the back end, and even .NET now. So there's a lot of different options.
The blueprints. That's awesome. I tried Tipster a few years ago, and a few months ago, I had to develop an application for the Red Hat Summit, and I say, I just heard Daniel tweeting about the blueprint for Quarkus. I said, let's give it a try. So he helped me. And yeah, to be honest, I was really impressed. And it's really nice. And what I also love with Gipster is the front-end generation, because I'm really bad. I'm still using jQuery when I do my, and that's my skill set in front-end. And that you can scaffold a whole front end, that makes my life really easy. But it's great. And that brings me, so there are a lot of different blueprints, and there's a Quarkus blueprint. Have you played with Quarkus? And I think yes, a bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Then,
yep.
And you like it, or are you?
Oh no, it's fantastic. It's so I have a blog post coming out tomorrow about native Java with Quarkus and Micronaut and Spring Boot. And Quarkus has always been, among the three, one of the ones that's given me the most fun developer experience, because it gives you that hot reload. And so Spring Boot has hot reload, it's Spring Boot DevTools, and I think Micronaut does too, but they require to actually be in an IDE, using Eclipse, recompile the class file, and then it reloads. And Quarkus, actually, all you got to do is save it, and it reloads, and it's, within milliseconds, and you're like, wow, that was so cool. That's something I experienced back when I was using Ruby on Rails or something weird like that,
Yeah, and that's really cool. Yeah, and you have this article coming tomorrow. By the way, there are some comments on your pull request. Someone from Reddit told me, because
right, I saw those this morning, so I'll incorporate those.
And I remember, because it's about, you also add the security part, of course, and I think his question is, why don't you use the OIDC extension and instead of the JOT? You are using the JOT extension, but we also have in Quarkus an OIDC, which is a bit smarter, and that deals with native stuff, and so. Yeah.
Right. And the funny thing about that is I helped publish a post, it was probably a couple of years ago, where it was similar. It was just comparing, creating a REST API with all three frameworks. And in that one, we were using the OIDC one, and someone from Red Hat was like, hey, you should use the JWT one instead. So.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, in this case, it's Sergey, and he's working on that OIDC extension. That's probably why he said.
Right, I love it. I've had great feedback. Right, I just wrote it in Tuesday. I wrote it all in a day, and I had done a lot of the work up front to create the examples beforehand. But I've sent that article to people from each of the frameworks, and they've been tremendous in responding and telling me, you can do it better. Here's how. So that's been really nice.
By the way, that's an awesome way of writing a blog post. That doesn't happen. I almost never saw that. So for people, Matt wrote a blog post. It's in GitHub, and he asked everyone to review it, to comment on it, so we can polish it and add some comments and correct it. And I think that every blog post, at least blog post that compares different frameworks, you should always ask to all the people involved if they can contribute. And and so, do you have it's not yet published yet, but where will people be able to find your blog post tomorrow?
It'll be on developer.okta.com/blog.
Okay.
And if you follow me on Twitter, my handle's in the stream here. I will I'll promote the hell out of it in the morning.
Okay. I just put the link there, developer.okta.com, in the chat. And let me see. Oh, some people joined the chat. So there's Charlie, my friend. He say, "Are you categorized as hot tub in Twitch?" Oh yeah, this crazy stuff on Twitch. This ladies in tubs, and I never watched it, but I know. So someone is asking me if I'm doing this. No. Sun, hi, Sun. Hi, Aurélie. Aurélie say, happy to see Matt Raible too. Several years ago, I wrote to Matt Raible about Equinox. A long time ago.
Equinox.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Equinox. Yeah, yeah. So what was Equinox? Because I don't remember, I think.
So I created Spring Live, right? Was a book that I wrote back in 2004. It was one of the first books on Spring.
Wow.
And at the time, I had this project called AppFuse that I would
Mm.
use to, similar to JHipster, but it would generate like a Hibernate and Spring and, struts like application. And so as part of the Spring Live book, I created this thing called Equinox, which was like a scaled down version of AppFuse to just show the concepts in the book. And so I maintained them both for about 10 years, and then I was like, this is too difficult. I'm gonna sunset them. I'm gonna put them in the attic, and I'm gonna work on JHipster instead and contribute to that. So
um, and Sunny's asking OSGI. No, nothing to do with
oh,
O.
Equinox, yeah. So that's way different. That's Clips
Yeah.
Equinox, right? And
Oh yeah.
yeah, that was different
Yeah.
than my little open source project. So
Yeah.
I probably didn't have much advice because we tried OSGI at LinkedIn. I worked at LinkedIn for a year in 2008, and we had this project called Phoenix, right? And it was rising from the ashes. It was going to reimagine how they would build their monolith, right, and use OSGI so they could hot swap, the
Oh,
various components and stuff like that. And the funny thing is, the project was very motivated by the fact that it took like a MacBook Pro to run the whole, LinkedIn app. And it would start up 65 services, I think, running in Jetty in the background. And then you could work on the main monolith. And it would take 20 minutes from running like, Ant start or whatever the command was. It was based on Ant to actually bring everything up. And if you forgot to run in debug mode, then you were like, I got to do it again, right? And so that's what the whole impetus behind behind OSGI is we need something faster. And the main guy, Jan, was actually in the shower one morning and was like, oh, we could just run things in parallel when doing the Ant build. And he got it down to like 5 minutes. And the whole project was like, we don't need that. And and the funny thing is now they have hundreds of microservices and they're all different languages. So at one point they made me do a study between Rails and Ruby on Rails because they had different teams using both frameworks. And they were like, we need to squash one and just adopt the other. And what I found was there's so much passion of those developers working with those frameworks that if they were to say you can't use Rails anymore, they'd be like, we're out of here, right? We'll go work somewhere else. So it warms my heart to see that they eventually embraced, microservices and allow people to basically build their apps with whatever they want, as long as it's, I think within a certain subset of frameworks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did a bit of OSGI. At one point, I was working for a company. I had to develop an Eclipse plugin, and Eclipse plugins are deployed as OSGI's artifacts.
Right.
Oh, that was, yeah. I remember the hardest part was building. We wanted some kind of CI, CDs, well, back in the time. But at that point, building something with OSGI with Maven was not that easy. You had some project called Felix that could turn your OSGI components to Maven artifacts. And yeah, I have still nightmares about it. But
well, it's funny because Eclipse was like the shining example of OSGI, right? They were always like, look how it allows you to hot reload. That's the whole OSGI thing, right? But I don't recall ever installing like an Eclipse plugin and Eclipse not saying like you need to restart now, right? So it's like, it never really did what it said it would. Now I know there's a lot of fans and there's lots of companies that have invested a lot of money in it. I'm sure it works for some people. It was like too complicated for me. I'm too stupid or, not experienced enough or whatever to make it work. And I think like RESTful services are a much better like OSGI-ish service, right? Because you can replace those as long as they're deployed independently and you get the new functionality.
Yeah. I totally right. I'm just looking in the. Oh, and Sunny's trotting a bit. He said Kubernetes is the new OSGI. Modules are pods. Yeah, well. Well, but by the way, you spoke a bit about Kubernetes. Do you use Kubernetes? Are you a Kubernetes user? Well, like me, for example programming, but do you master Kubernetes and do you like it?
So I spent a month writing a blog post on Kubernetes with JHipster and deploying to like Google Cloud, and it was a very good experience. A lot of it was JHipster like did a lot of the work for you. But where it became complicated is when I sent it to this friend, Fernand Guliana. So he wrote K9s, if you're familiar with K9s. and I asked him to review it, and he was like, you have to do more Kubernetes concepts, right? He was like, instead of showing this stuff in Docker Compose, you got to use Minikube. And so I had to go, play around with Minikube for a bit. So that's why it took a month to write. And also I did a bunch with secrets. And so, a lot of people use external secrets like Spring Vault or, HashiCorp Vault. But they also use Kubernetes secrets, which aren't really secret. They're just base64 encoded strings, right? So it's like, that was a very, fun concept to learn about, and being like, this isn't great. And then learned about sealed secrets from Bitnami that allows you to encrypt your secrets so you can store them safely in source control and all that. So it was a very good learning experience. So I would say, like, I was kind of a novice before that, and now I'm still not an expert, but I know way more about Kubernetes secrets and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And what you say, that secrets are not really secrets. I have to teach people about secrets, and I say the first thing, secrets, and then I retrieve the YAML. I say, look how secret it is. There it is. And so it's not that secret, but yeah. We almost have to wrap up, but since about Kubernetes, because I asked this question to all my guests when we mentioned Kubernetes, is there one feature that really impressed you? What is your preferred feature of Kubernetes right now? So it could be anything: scaling, the scheduler, or the service concept. Is there one thing that you say, hey, that's cool?
I do like how there is this secure notion of you have to expose ports, right? In the sense of it's harder to actually deploy and have everything like exposed than it is to deploy and like not have it exposed, right? The default is you haven't exposed anything. If you want to, make an IP available on the public web, like you have to do some extra work for that. So I think, even though that can be frustrating as a developer, I think the operations team would be like, yeah, that's how it's supposed to be, right? We want to hide most things and optimize the communication between them if we can, and only expose to the public what we have to. So I like that.
Yeah. And the other question that I always ask is, if you could imagine pick the whatever feature you want that you dream of, even if it doesn't exist yet, and that you could put it in the next Kubernetes release, do you have something in mind that what it could be? It could be a feature from a layer from the ecosystem, or something that doesn't exist yet. Is there something out of your mind?
Not YAML, right? Like, if there was a different format to configure everything instead of YAML, I think that would be nice, because like I didn't experience much frustration with JHipster because it all worked, right? And it generated it for me. But I've been bit by YAML so much where your indent is off and things don't work and you don't know why, and there's no like, validation that tells you why. So I don't know if there's a better way to like write that code, right, to do that infrastructure, but I think, all the infrastructure as a service or infrastructure as code systems kind of suffer from so much YAML, right? So maybe a new formatting that makes it not so bad. I mean, we kind of look back at XML and we're like, hey, maybe it wasn't so bad.
Maybe it wasn't so bad. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. I'm sure Bruno will be really satisfied with your answer. And just because it's funny, in my first show that was last year in August, and my first guest was Ray Tsang, and I asked him the same question, and he said, what I want is to have my jar file, and I want to drag and drop it in my Kubernetes clusters, and it runs. And I said, oh yeah, that will be cool. And guess what? In OpenShift, which is our Kubernetes from Red Hat, in the latest version 4.8, you can now drag and drop your jar file on the console, a bit like you upload a video on YouTube. From your file system, you take your runnable jar and you drag and drop it on the topology view, and it just uploads. It creates a deployment behind it, exposes everything, and So, to be honest, for advocates like us, it's awesome because you can.
Yeah. I mean, I've always loved, like Heroku, how you can do a Git push, or Cloud Foundry, you can do a CF push, right? Like, if we can get that for Kubernetes, giddy up,
Yeah. Okay, that's great to hear. Okay, hey, I need to wrap up, but before we end, I think the world is slowly starting to open up. I already been invited to conferences. Actually, I will go to my first conference in October in Hamburg, in Germany. I think if everything goes well.
Nice. Yeah.
What on your side? Have you also this feeling that things are slowly starting to open up a bit, or?
Oh yeah, I did. I actually did an in-person talk in May here in Colorado because a lot of people are vaccinated, and we also have areas that just don't care, right? So, Colorado Springs was one of those areas where they were like, we haven't worn masks the whole time, so what's the deal with an in-person meetup? So, I was fully vaccinated, and I was like, I'll go do it. And as expected, there was only 4 people that showed up, so it was good practice, right? I always like speaking in person because it's good practice. We're trying to do like Denver Java user group. I help run that. That is very dependent on our provider, right? So our provider is Pivotal. Now they're VMware. They have a building downtown that they let us meet at that we really like. Well, they're not even letting their employees back until September, right? So they're not going to allow a bunch of strangers in there shortly after. So that might not be this year. But I do work at a co-working space in Denver Tech Center, which is about 10 miles from my house. And they're fully like, if you're vaccinated, you can do what you want, right? So they're allowing us to do like a Denver open source meetup, August or September. We're going to start doing them in person there. And then UberConf, which is a conference here in Broomfield, which is just north of Denver, they're doing an in-person one in October. And then that same company is doing one down in Florida in December in person. So I've signed up for all those. I'd love to travel internationally, but I don't know if I'm ready to like commit to speaking just because, things might get canceled from a company or a government along the way. So that's probably still next year.
Yeah, I know the next big one that will maybe happen in Europe is DevOps in December. If it happens in August, they will make the decision in August if they do it, yes or no. And if they do it, they will do it in December this time instead of November.
Well, I think DevOps UK is doing it in
DevOps UK. Yeah.
in October, right? Yeah. But they're doing like a hybrid, right? I think it's both kind of thing.
It's hybrids. Yeah. So, well, we will see. And because I can't wait to meet again in person. I think the last time we met was in Morocco. I think just before a few weeks before the whole wars closed.
Right.
Yeah. Or maybe
in fact, from that trip, I used Uber for the first time in a year and a half, like just last week. And my last trip was when I was coming home from Morocco, and I stopped in Brussels and took an Uber downtown to get the best Belgian quad in the world at like this one bar. And that was my last Uber trip.
Oh yeah, that's funny. I haven't looked what my last trip is. It should be something like that as well. Okay.
Right.
Hey, Matt, it was awesome talking with you. I really hope we will be able to meet soon. I don't know when I will travel to the US again or when you will come. But or maybe somewhere else, maybe in Hawaii.
I'll come to you. I still want to come to Riviera Dev one of these days, right?
Do you saw what we are doing this year? We're doing that on a lake.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we rented out a lake, and people will go on pedal boats, the attendees, and the speakers will be on the beach on the where all the boats are parked, and they will speak from there. So we are trying this out. Yeah. In 3 weeks, 2 weeks, in 2 weeks. Yeah. So that's
all right. Well, good luck, and I hope it works. I can't wait to see the pictures.
Yeah, you will see some pictures and stuff like that. Hey, Matt, thank you so much. Everyone, you can see Matt's Twitter handle there, so follow him. Oh, no. How do I do that? This way. Yeah. So follow him, and people stay on the channel. I will share some news with you. And Matt, see you later. Was awesome.
Thank you.
Hey,
great to see you.
Bye.
Bye.
So, okay, that was great. We spoke a long time, but when I just love to speak a lot. And to be honest, today I don't have any games planned. Let me see a bit in the chat. Son, and you are chatting. Oh, I'm back on the live. Cool. You know what? I'm doing that from the pool. I must at least swim a little bit, and I come back, and then I will speak a little bit about Red Hat Summit Part 2 that happened this week. Okay, but I come back. Let me see how I can do that. Oh. And there I am. Let me be sure I don't. That's awesome. Okay, I will go underwater before the end of the stream. Okay. Anyway, let me see. Oh, I can see myself swimming in the. Okay, and I see Sebastien. He said we should have pool meetings made mandatory for Red Hat partners. Yeah, we can make that happen totally. You know what? Really quickly, I want to share some stuff with you about Red Hat Summit. Let me go and share my screen. Where is this? This is share screen, and I do here. I share my screen. Oh, it's almost a bit chilly now. Anyway, so now we are in inception mode. So last week was not DevNation. It was Red Hat Summit Part 2. Okay, and if you missed it, it's not really an issue because you can still register because all the talks are on demand. So the starting page is Red Hat Summit probably. Let me show you. There we go, Red Hat Summit there. Let me put the link in the chat. Okay, you can still register, and there's some cool talks to see. Okay, and the best way to do that is to go to the session catalog. Okay, session catalog. There we go. Okay, and just search for cool stuff. Okay, so for instance, I love Quarkus. So if you look for Quarkus, where am I in Quarkus? Okay, there we go. And you will have 9 sessions, okay? Quarkus Fundamentals by James Falker. That's always great stuff, okay? These are great talks by Red Hatters, so you can watch them. The reactive one. This one really is with Georgia, Stefan, and Stuart, okay? If you want to understand a bit more about how Quarkus Reactive works, these people here, they made it. They know how to explain it. So I really advise you to watch it, okay? So you just click here, and if you are registered, you can watch the talk. It's probably 30 minutes. Yeah, it's a 30 minutes long, okay? But you will also see some talks about customers, okay, that are using Quarkus. And this one, I really like it. This one is called How Quarkus Helps Amadeus. So maybe some people know Amadeus. Its company is 10 minutes away from my home. It's a big company. It's a leader in the travel software industry, okay? And they have really smart people there. And they started to look at Quarkus, okay? And they use it now, okay? And they explain you how, they explain in this talk, you can see the title, How Quarkus Help Amadeus Transform Toward Cloud-Native Event-Driven Microservices, okay? So it's a combination of Kafka and Quarkus, and yeah, I really advise you that. And I know all these people. I know Kevin yet. His brother, Julien, is the leader of Vertex at Red Hat, okay? And his brother is working at Amadeus, okay? So there's a lot of great stuff. And I asked my friends, can you advise me some other talks? So you should look for Natale, which is my colleague Natale with Madhu, which is a solution architect here at Red Hat France. They made a really cool talk also about managing distributed development teams the cloud native way. Okay, so that is just an advice. You can register for free, and you have a whole catalog of really, really cool talks. Okay, probably even if you look for Knative, some stuff, Knative, 4 sessions around Knative, okay? And I think even if we look for Tecton, I think we can find some talks about Tecton with Argo CD. That's hot, So that was just my advice. And one last thing that has been announced by Red Hat this year, this week as well, is Kubernetes by example. Let me Google that for you. Kubernetes by example. Okay, so Kubernetes by example, what is it? It's a website. I will share the link with you right now. There we go. Where is my chat live streaming? There it is. Oh, let me paste it there. Let me see, just comments. Still have reviewed it. And Mark say, Quarkus is cool, but still love Wildflower. Wildflower. Yeah, I love Wildflower as well. But yeah, honestly, I really felt in love with Quarkus. But Wildflower is still a great product. Okay, anyway, Kubernetes by example. What is that? That is your landing page, your landing zone. If you want to learn Kubernetes and learn by doing, okay? And you have some learning passes, okay? You have like Kubernetes fundamentals, okay? So where should I start? What is Kubernetes in 3 minutes, okay? And so in 3 minutes, Edson, who is here, will explain you that, and you can follow that. Kubernetes CLI with kubectl. You want to learn that? Hey, and look who made that video. Yeah, it's me. So my team, Edson, Alex, and me, we all made these videos. We have 20 videos of 3 minutes explaining you all the basic concept of Kubernetes, like what is a tint, what is an affinity, what is a job, a stateful set. Okay, that is just one part. There's way more. So Kubernetes by example. Okay, you can probably contribute to it as well. Okay. Oh, when you click on, let me find one with Alex. What are secrets? Oh no, I did this one. What are secrets? And I probably say secrets are not that secret. Okay, you have to watch it. Where is Alex? Volumes. Yeah. So volumes also quite a complicated concept, okay? And that is Alex. Alex, he can really well explain you what volumes are, okay? So he tried to do that in 3 minutes, and he managed to do that. So yeah, that's it for you. You can go there, learning pass, enjoy. And you know what? It's and Sebastien said, it looks awesome just when I wanted to get on speed with Kubernetes. Yes. And you know what? It's great, but there are also other great stuff. And since Aurélie is there, if you also want other videos about Kubernetes, Aurélie, she has a channel. Aurélie, let me find your channel. Let me promote your channel for a while. Because the easiest is to go on YouTube, maybe. And is that on your own channel? Let me see. Where are you? There you are. So if you go on the channel of Aurélie, she has a lot of videos, which are also between 2 minutes and 4 minutes. Depends, Aurélie. Which explains a concept of Kubernetes with sketch notes. Okay.
Bonjour, bienvenue dans 1.5.
So here she explains nodes. What is a node? Okay, and she explains that with really nice sketch notes, okay, that you can see here, and that is also awesome. So please also go on the channel of Aurélie, and you have to go on both. I need views, she needs views, okay. It's awesome. Okay, hey, you know what? I promised that I will go underwater. Let me do that, and then we will break the stream, and I will whoa. And something is flying away. Yeah, the weather is... let me stop my screen share. Where do I stop my screen share? There we go. Let me go back in full screen. And I just go underwater. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Let me dry my hands, so I don't electrocute myself. Let me put my glasses, otherwise I don't see anything. Hey, that was a crazy show, but in 15 days for the next show, it will be 1 day before Riviera Dev, which will happen on a lake, remember? And the day before, I will be on this lake, and my plan is to do a live stream from this lake on a pedal boat, depending on the connection. And there will be some speakers already there. I don't know yet who, maybe Horacio and other. And well, my guess they will be around me, and we will just do the interview on the pedal boat. Okay, so crazy stuff in 15 days. Next week is Tech Talk. Okay, I think it's Katja Aristi speaking about data grid and how they built the battleship game from the sim. So I really advise you next week to attend the Tech Talk. same time. Okay, same channel. Until then, please stay safe. Enjoy the rest of the day, evening, depending where you are. And yeah, it was a great challenge for me to do that from my pool. And I'm getting bitten more and more by mosquitoes. I will regret that tonight, but anyway, it was funny. Thank you again, everyone. Let me find the ending clip. Okay.